Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. We are working on this Bally Knight Rider finally. If you didn't see it, it has appeared in dozens of our videos. It's always sitting right here waiting to be fixed. But today, we're actually working on it. We already did one video of it, if you haven't seen it yet. And in that video, we worked on all of this stuff in the bottom of the cabinet. There was a wire that some person had hacked in at some point. It was hacked. You can see it. It's that bright white one back there, and it's right here. It was all hacked in. But we have ran it through the Jones plug like it's supposed to be. I have no clue if it's working. I think it is. I wonder if it's the light for the lights in the back box. Maybe. We ran it how it was supposed to be. Cleaned up everything. Got everything adjusted and cleaned and everything. And put it all back where it goes. So we're kind of done with that until we troubleshoot it and figure out what we missed. But today we're going to move into the back box and finally work in the back of this thing. This is such a cool game. We've had a couple of these. I actually have another one in storage. So I'm looking for a Backglass. Now this one here, the Backglass is a little rough too, but if anybody has a Knight Rider electromechanical Backglass, get a hold of us. There's two of them. There's this one, which is the EM, which you can tell the only difference is basically the windows. So like on an EM, it shows the individual digits. On a solid state, it shows the whole thing out so you can see the display. But we have another one of these EMs, just like this one, in storage. We're waiting on a Backglass for us. We're going to have to either bite the bullet and buy a new one, or maybe somebody will pop up with one. But I'll slide this thing out from the wall. Let's look in the back of it, and then we'll start cleaning. We're going to start cleaning, and we'll see if we can get this thing a little farther along. So in a previous video, we actually showed what's in the back of this thing. It's just like all the other Ballys we've worked on. We've worked on many, and they're all very similar. Nice design by this time. So this is a later game. This was, I think, 1976 or 77. By this time, they'd kind of figured it out, folks. And they weren't really making them cheap, in my opinion. They were just making them right. So they work pretty good, usually, once you get everything cleaned. So you've got 16 score reels. The reason there are 5 digital on each one is because one of the reels is a fake one. It just shows a 0 on it. You've got your 10-point relay that makes all the 10-point reels turn. 100-point relay, 1,000-point relay. You don't have a 10,000-point relay because it's made to turn by the 1,000-point reel. There's never an instance when you need 10,000 points to be scored unless it's rolling from 9,000 points. Okay. Number 1 score reset relay, I think it resets those two. Number 2 score reset relay, I believe, resets those two. You can actually do that while it's turned off. Let's see if it'll do it. See, these 3 reset, but this one didn't. So that's some of the stuff that we'll mess with today. If I turn this one a little bit, same thing. Maybe it doesn't work like I think. Oh, okay, I got it wrong. So what's going on there? The number 1 score reset relay must, maybe it does the first 2 of each reel, and then the number 2 one does the second 2, something like that. But we just reset them all back to 0, but we'll clean all that just to make sure everything's working good. We have the Jones plugs down here that we cleaned in the previous video because those are coming from the bottom board that we replaced. Some games have a Jones plug from the playfield coming up into the back box, but this particular one doesn't. I don't know if any of the Ballys do, or I mean, I've seen several of them like that, but I don't know if it's the Ballys or not. And then up here we have our 100,000 point relays. So these make a little light come on the front on the Backglass if there is if you get up over 100,000 points. And on some of them it makes an alarm. Yeah, this one's got the buzzer, so it's going to make a buzzer go off too. Got the knocker here. Match unit, or 0 to 90 unit, I guess they call it. This is the replay, the credit unit. Each company calls it something different, which basically shows how many credits you've got on the thing. If you do this, it'll probably make the knocker work. Yep. PlayerUp Unit looks nice and clean. This, all in all, is a pretty clean game. The only thing is the backglass is pretty rough. We might mess with it later on in this video, depending on how long all this takes us. Okay, so same old, same old. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to clean these 5 relays, and I'm going to clean these 4 relays, and that will be all the relays in the back box, essentially. So basically, I'm going to go through with a small file and clean all of the contacts. And it's very simple. If they're open when the relay pulls in, they should close. If they're closed when the relay pulls in, they should open. And there's some that have 3 fingers and it goes back and forth as it opens and closes. Very, very simple, people. If you've seen our other videos, you know exactly what we're talking about. So I'm going to clean those. I'll see if I find anything weird. Usually you don't, but just in case. So I'll do those first, and we'll get those out of the way. A lot of times people think, there's just so much stuff. How do you know what you're doing? You don't really have to know what you're doing. It looks much more complicated than it is. It's just a bunch of little switches. You want to make sure that the contact, when it touches, electricity can pass between them. If they're dirty or corroded or oxidized, it can't happen. So you want to get those the faces of the contacts shiny and clean again. You can get a contact burnisher, or they make little cleaning kits, but we just use a file that's worn out, so you don't want to too aggressively eat up the face of the contact or anything like that. So once you get all of the switches clean, everything adjusted and everything, they're usually fairly reliable. The thing that keeps these from working usually isn't that parts fail, it's usually that something's dirty. There's a bad connection. Okay, so we're going to do these 5 and those 4, and then we won't have to worry about any of the relays in the back box. We'll have that completely finished. All right, folks, we cleaned all the relays. I didn't run into any problems. We never really do. And so now we're doing the score reels. There are 16 score reels, like we said, and it's the same old thing. We showed us 100 times. But basically, so this is the 10-point relay or score reel. When the 10-point relay pulls in, it pulls this sucker in. All right. And then when it lets go, there's a little gear down there. That little foot there pushes the gear forward. These Ballys are a pretty good little design. They don't, usually they're nice and clean and they do their thing. So whenever you get to, there are these little switches on the edge. The top switch opens when you get to 0, and the middle switch opens when you get to 0. One of the switches there you go, is in line to the coil, but through the reset relay. So one of these, the reset relay, is connected to through that switch, and so whenever the reset relay pulls in, it sends power to this coil and pulls it in, unless this switch is open, and this switch is open when it's at 0. So that's how it gets everything back to 0. The reset relay pulls in, and it keeps doing that until this gets back to 0, which will open the switch, and then the reset relay can no longer connect to this coil, and so the reset relay will keep going, but this won't move because the switch is open. And then also the other switch will open because all of those, instead of turning off this coil, they turn off the reset coil, not the reset relay. I mean, not the score reset relay, but the actual reset relay. So as long as one of these is on, the reset relay will continue to stay pulled in. If all 16 of these open, then the reset relay will no longer be getting power that way. It can still get power through like the bonus unit if it's trying to reset that, etc., etc. So, but in general, these 2 top ones need to open when it gets to 0, and this bottom one here, you can see it's open right now. It's open until you get to 9. When you get to 9, it makes that bottom one closed, so that the next time you get a pulse, it will not only pulse this with the 10-point relay, but it'll go through that switch and also pulse the next one in line. And that's how you go from a 9 to a 0 on this one, and from a 0 to a 1 on that one. So you get 10 instead of 9. So it's a very cool little setup. But once you get off of 9, that one opens back up. And when you get to 0, the 9 one is open because you're not on 9. And the middle one is open to turn off the reset relay. And the top one is open to turn off this coil. Or I think it's that coil. Let's see which one. I can tell by the color of the wire. White and black. No, I got them backwards. It's the middle one. The middle one turns off the coil, and the top one turns off the reset relay. So, that's that. Okay, so there's also one in here too. This one is closed, and it opens when it goes all the way back. That one is the one that holds on the 10-point relay. Just to confuse you. So let's say you hit a 10-point switch on the playfield, which turns on the 10-point relay, which starts pulling this thing in, right? And so you get to about right there, which is not enough to move the score reel. So you only get like a little bit of a plunge. This turns on, starts pulling in the coil. But then in just a split second, the ball bounces off of the target on the playfield. And so there's not enough time for this to get all the way back. And now the 10-point relay turns off because the ball is no longer hitting the target, and that goes back. Well, you never scored your points. Right? So what they do is they make it where as soon as you hit that, it locks on the relay, and the only way to unlock the relay is to pull this all the way back, and it opens that switch, which kills the relay. When the relay's killed, it lets go of the coil and pushes it forward. Clever little setup. So we're going to, same thing, clean all the switches, clean the face of the things. We also need to clean these little boards down in here. This one's pretty clean. Sometimes you get away with it, you don't have to, because the if it hasn't been messed with, it'll be pretty clean down in there because they don't put any kind of grease on it or anything. So it'll be all nice and shiny. Kind of like, see how this is all nice and shiny? Doesn't really need to be rebuilt, but we're going to anyway. So we got to check all them. You can take this all apart by going right down through the front of it. So we're going to clean them all, make sure everything's cool, and then we'll be done with the score reels and onto the stepper units. Okay, folks, so we just got a couple things left. So one is the replay unit. I've showed these before. Basically, it's a big, huge wheel. This one subtracts credits, and this one adds credits. Right? And it basically just keeps the number on this wheel. You can change how many credits you can have by moving this one brass stud here. If you move that stud into one of these other holes, it makes it where there is a greater distance between here and here, so it allows you to have more steps on it. This one they've got set at kind of the minimum, which is probably 10, something like that. But basically, as it spins around, it hits a couple switches. So whenever it goes up as far as it can go, that little brass stud opens that switch right there. That's just hanging out in the way of the brass stud, and so it opens it. So it's no longer touching. Once it does that, it kills the ability to win a free game or to add a credit. Basically, that wheel's not going to change, not going to turn anymore. It also makes it where the knocker doesn't work, because the only way the knocker works is if this pulls in, which it can't do because it's opened the stud, so that's no longer going to get a signal, right? And so when it goes back the other way, which it does every time it subtracts a credit when you start a game or something, the other little post here eventually opens up the two other switches. But on this one, it can't, because they've bent the switches up out of the way. And the reason that they did that was because that basically puts it on free play. So no matter how many times we take off another credit, once it's back to its home position, if those switches haven't opened, it will keep letting you hit the start button. So it's basically it put it on free play. Now, if it was, it'll say 0 on the front, or it may even actually be down at the one below 0. But if adjusted normally, at the point that it gets to 0, that little stud would open those two switches, which would make it where it kills your ability to press the button. And it also is what turns on this light on the playfield. on the apron. That little light there, so that says for amusement only. That little light comes on if you have credits on the machine. And that switch there is what turns on that light, one of the switches. That's what one does. The other one makes it impossible for this coil to move here. That adds a credit. Makes it impossible for the start button to work. It just opens up that circuit on the schematics. So if you bend those switches out of the way, you would really only have to bend one of them because one of them is just a light. But if you bend those switches out of the way when that post, so it won't hit them, then you're always on free play. So someone has already done that to this, which means it must have been in somebody's house at some point. This one here, right, the PlayerUp Unit, a little tag fell off of it. They're calling this, yeah, the PlayerUp Unit. Like I said, it was already pretty clean, but what I did was I just cleaned the surfaces that I could see, and then I moved the spider a little bit and cleaned the ones under the legs. It's working fine, though, so it didn't need much work. There are also some switches here that are basically the same setup. It could go this way, and then it can reset this way. But you see on this one, it resets, instead of resetting one step, like this one does, it resets all the way. But there are only 4 spots. So we're in the first position now, second position, third position, fourth position. So what I always do is I make sure that it can reset from every position. Because sometimes you'll get one where it can reset from all the way up because there's more tension on the spring. But if you just move it a little bit, it won't reset because there's not enough tension on the spring. But this one's nice and good. I put the synthetic grease on it too. If you watch my videos, you know I'm always pimping this stuff. This is dielectric grease. It works great for those things. You just put a little bit on the board for the wiper fingers to go around. Don't use just any grease. Whatever you get dielectric grease. That stuff works really good. And it is linked on our website. Go to lionsarcade.com and you can get you some of that, as well as a bunch of our other little tools and stuff that we use on these games. So that one's rebuilt. Wasn't much to it. That one, I cleaned a couple switches. I cleaned this off already. It's a little rusted, but cleaned it up just a little bit. This is the switch, like we saw earlier, that makes the knocker work. It was already working, but we cleaned it. That's pretty much everything back here, with the exception of this little 0 to 90 unit, which is the match unit. I think they may do something else with it as well. Basically on this one, if you take the screw out, you can take this little board off and clean the back side of it as well. There's also a screw missing right here on the switch stack. So I'm going to go try to find a screw for that, and I'm going to see if I can pop the side of this off to show you what it looks like inside of it. All right, folks, so I took the plunger off, the coil off. You can see it's basically the same as a score unit. The little board is actually the same. It's just instead of a reel, they have this different sprog, or whatever it's called, with a second set of wipers on it that goes on this second board. Right? So, same as the other ones. Very simple. And it also has the little gears, but on this one it just goes back and forth to give you kind of like an alternating thing. So I think on that they may use it to wag the lights back and forth on the playfield or something like that. So same as other stuff, just clean it, get it nice and shiny. No big deal. All right, folks, so when I did all the score reels, I left them all on a number other than 0, except for that one. Ooh. Except for that fake 0. Okay, I got them all on a number other than 0. And so now we're going to try to start it and see if it will reset them. I don't even know if it'll do it with the playfield out of it, but I believe it will. Let's see if we can try to get it to start and try to reset all of them and see if they're all clean enough to reset back to 0. There's one in every crowd, people. So why is that one not? Well, there's only really two things that could be wrong. Either the switch isn't connected as it should be. Let's see if I hold it down. Yeah, it's that switch. So that one switch just isn't adjusted quite tight enough. I need to adjust it a little bit. So it can either be that, or it can sometimes be that the switch on the reset, the score reset relay that actually controls that one, that it's got that same problem. But we'll work on that. All right, so we got it all to reset. So now we got to mess with this back glass a little bit. I've been thinking about this for a long time. The problem is, I don't care what anybody tells you, this cannot be easily repaired because there's paint missing everywhere. So the guy's light blue hat, his peach colored skin, his dark brown hair, his dark brown jacket that matches his hair, the slightly different brown on his collar, the same light blue as his hat on the truck, the orange has a little missing, light blue has a little missing, and then the girl is the worst of all because I've said this before, this is not a sexist comment. It's just whenever you look at this back glass, you look at the girl. That's why they drew her, right? And she looks like she has leprosy. So you can't really touch that up. It's the first thing everybody's going to look at. So if I try to go in there and repaint her arm, it's just not going to look good. It's not going to look right. So the damage is already done. So I've been thinking, there's only really one thing I think I can do with this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to clear it so it doesn't get any worse, and then I'm going to paint it white on the back. Now when I do that, it's going to make it where you lose the translucent, well, it won't be, it'll still be translucent, the transparent. You'll lose the transparent parts where you can see the bulb, and it will replace all these little flakes with white. But it kind of has an interesting look. If we do that and it's all even, it should look pretty good. It just won't look how the original one looked. But I don't think there's another way to do it. You could try to use an airbrush and paint all the correct colors in and everything, but I don't have an airbrush, and it's just not the... it would take so long that I'm not going to be able to do it. The windows, after I clear it, I'm going to tape off the windows so that we don't get paint on them, of course. But we're going to try to touch it up by just painting it all white behind it. That will probably make it where the lights are not quite as bright. But right now they're bright because you're looking literally through the clear glass where the paint is completely gone and looking at the bulb. So that's the way we're going to attempt to do it. So I'll pull it out and we'll look at the back and you see how just how destroyed it is. So this is the back to show you the severity of the paint loss. It's pretty rough. If you're not familiar with these, basically they're silk screened, several layers of paint, and then the last screen is this mask, which is like a reflective silver. Anything that was covered by the mask, basically lights are not supposed to illuminate. These are translucent, so the light is supposed to shine through them because they don't have this mask on it. But the stuff that was covered by the mask is the only stuff that the paint holds up on some of these glasses. It typically depends on how it was stored. If it was in an area that got hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, it will cause it to deteriorate faster. A lot of people think it's because of where the light bulbs were, but that's not true. Some of the colors will never flake away. It just depends on, it has to do with the paint and how well it adheres to the glass. When it gets hot and cold, the glass moves and it just causes problems. So it's not the bulb thing. So a lot of people say, oh, if you put LEDs, it'll save your back glass. There's a little truth to that because there's heat from the incandescence, but the LEDs, the heat is not really what made this happen. It's basically how it was stored. There's a lot of places that have had these on location for the whole time. They've been operating pinball machines for 30, 35 years and the glasses still look fine. You know, you don't want to go crazy with it, right? So what we do is we take out the 47 bulbs, the 44 bulbs, which is what's in them, and we put 47 bulbs in. So see, this is a 44. and if you replace it with a 47, it's 40% less. It uses 40% less wattage, and it creates 40% less heat. So it helps with that situation, but typically this is because it was stored in a shed or something like that. So it's just unfortunately very common on Bally's. This one's pretty bad though because it's all over everything. However, I think it's going to look pretty good once we touch it up. So we'll see. So the first step is I cleaned off all of the windows very carefully. Okay. You can try to tape off the windows so that you don't get clear on the windows, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to paint right over it, and I'll show you how it turns out. Basically, we're going to use triple thick, which is like a pottery glaze type product that's in a spray paint can, and just paint that on there. You do a kind of a light coat first, let it dry for a few minutes. It doesn't take long, and then you can do a thicker coat. And by doing that, you're basically putting a thin clear coat on the whole thing that will hold all of this stuff in place so it won't get any worse. And then after that, you can think about how you want to touch it up. You can paint it by hand if it's smaller spots, but whenever it's like everything and it's several different colors, we're just going to do like a whitewash behind it and see how that turns out. So I'm going to take it in the back and clear coat it, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, folks, I put the light coat on. This is the stuff we use. Triple thick crystal clear glaze. More stuff you can get on our website if you need a link to it. Okay, lionsarcade.com. Okay, so the thing about painting over the windows is, like I said, they're hard to tape off when the paint is flaking. So like if the paint is, like all this is flaking, I can't put tape on that, you know, or get tape anywhere near that. So if you put it on it just takes so much time. You don't really want to do that. So here's what we're going to do, okay? We're going to clear it, and then when we get done, we're going to go over that one last time with a heavy coat. I'll show you what I mean. You just want to keep a wet lead on it, basically. So see how it's all spotty looking right now? So, bam. You just want it all to be wet at the same time. So the most important thing is that those windows end up like that last. And then they'll all dry evenly, and it'll be nice and clear. Right? And you can see that when I got on it so heavy just then that it, even though it's clear, you can almost see it a little bit milky. Right? So that's what we're doing. And we're just going to paint the whole thing, get it on there nice and thick so that the stuff can't flake off. And then we can tape off whatever we want to not get the white overspray on it. Okay, folks, we'll let it dry overnight. As you can see, got a nice sheen to it now. That's that clear coat we were wanting. So now it's solid enough that you can put tape on it and pull it back off, and it doesn't disrupt the paint because you're on that clear coat now. So we have taken tape and taped off our windows, and the tape was just about the right size to where it'll tape off the windows, but the outside of it we can still get paint on. Maybe clean that up a little bit. Now it's not going to perfectly fix the score windows because, as you can see, they have some damage too. Right? But the part around it was where most of the damage was. Okay, so we are going to attempt to just spray some white paint on it. I'm going to try to go light though. I'm going to try not to get too heavy on it if I can help it, because every little bit of it I get on there is going to make it where the lights don't shine through quite as good. It's going to make it slightly more opaque the whole time. So we're not going to go crazy, but I think this is going to drastically improve the look of it once we put it back in the machine. If you did go too dark on it, you could always put like brighter LEDs or something behind it. That'd be even brighter to shine through that freaking opaqueness. But we're probably not going to do that, folks. We're going to see how it comes out and roll with it. So I'm not going to paint everything. I'm just going to spot paint the stuff that's definitely flaked. Like this down here, the Game Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tilt, I probably won't mess with. Right? So we'll see how it comes out. Okay, folks, so I have swapped all the light bulbs like I mentioned. Let me show you the difference. You're not going to be able to see. Let me turn down the brightness so that you can maybe see. That is a 44. This is one of the original ones, and it's dirty. And that's a 47, a brand new one. So it is a little bit lighter. It's not quite as bright. And it, like I said, the wattage is a little lower so that it doesn't use as much power, and that will keep the heat down a little bit. By this time they had kind of standardized how they laid everything out. If you look at this Captain Fantastic here next to us, completely different theme, but you see that the 4 score windows are in the exact same spot, and you might think, well, they're always like that. They weren't always like that. They changed it. See at the top the little circles, that's all of the match numbers, right? And then in the middle is where it lights up, and I think that's where it says same player shoots again or whatever, there in the middle at the top. And then down at the bottom on the left you have the 1 to 4 can play. Same thing here. And I think I can step through that. 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then one of these is tilt or something, or one of them might be same player can shoot again. And then this is the ball and play, just like on the Elton John one. Okay, and this is game over, just like on the Elton John one. So you literally could put this head on that one. I don't know if it has everything exactly the same, but it just might. Very similar. Okay, so you can test. So you saw we just tested the 1 to 4 can play. That's handled by this unit, the coin unit. All right, and then on the in the back we had that match unit that we were messing with. So the match unit you can mess with, and you will see the match number at the top move. So all of that seems to be working good. And I turned on all of the 100,000 relays. They did their thing. I didn't test the buzzer, but we're going to test that right now. The over-the-top delay relay does it. This one right here. It's going to be loud. So cool. So if you haven't seen that before, we've done other videos on it. They have a light bulb that the power runs through, and it's a blinking light bulb like this one. And the way those work is they get hot, so they're connected, and then whenever they heat up, there's a little spring in there that moves out of the way, and it makes it where it's no longer connected. And so by running the power through it for the relay, it holds on until the bulb heats up, and then whenever that spring moves in the bulb, it separates the filament. And not only does it turn off the light, it turns off the power to the relay. So that's how they make the buzzer work for a specific time. So that noise is what you hear whenever you go over 100,000 points when that light comes on. It turns on the over-the-top relay, and that's what you just heard. Okay, so the paint is drying on the back glass. We'll go get it, put it back in here, and hope for the best. Well, I gotta say, that turned out better than I thought it would. Let me just show you the 5 foot. This is more like 3 foot. So you no longer have the transparent parts where you could see the bulbs, like for instance on his jacket. All of that has been replaced with white. And yeah, it doesn't look like that's how it's supposed to be, but I think that's the best way to handle it. I think if you've got it all over the place, that's the best way to handle it. And it appears that there's going to be a few issues, but it appears that it's going to light up pretty good. So I painted over this, for instance, and it's lit up just fine. Same with that. I'll turn those lights off and we'll see how it looks. And the woman, it looks pretty good. It just looks like it has like a really old Instagram filter on it. I think it looks good. Now the logo, I'll turn off the lights here, and whenever it gets a little darker, I'll show it a little more. But The logo, I mean, it literally looks like it could have been designed like that. I think this is the way to go. If you've got a ton of stuff missing, paint it white. Just make sure you clear it first, though. And technically, although it would be hard, you could probably you could remove that white paint if you had to, because it's over the clear. But you know, it wouldn't be the easiest thing in the world. But I think that looks pretty good considering what we started with. Let me see if it's dark enough yet to turn out the lights and get a better look at it. So it's still afternoon, but I got it, you know, a little bit darker. As you can see, I mean, I was afraid that it would darken it so much that like you wouldn't be able to see her anymore. I repainted the whole thing. I mean, all of that was repainted white. But because it's white, enough light goes through that you can still see the detail. I like it a lot. Okay, so I'll wait a little bit till it gets darker, and then we'll get a last look at it. All right, folks. So that is that. I am unbelievably pleased. I can't believe it came out looking that good. I thought it was going to just look horrible, but I mean, it almost looks like it was designed like that. I think that's definitely the only way to go if you've got tons of paint missing. Wow. I can't believe I got it looking so smooth, too. I figured it would be all splotchy, like certain parts would be darker than other parts, but it came out great. So you can see, you know, when you're close enough, obviously there's lots of problems, but with the clear coat, it's not going to get any worse. And then with the white, you've kind of put like an effect on it. That looks really presentable, I think. The truck looks like it's just got a custom paint job. I guess it does, doesn't it? All right, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. I think I'm going to start doing it like that whenever I have major areas that need to be repainted. I'm just going to put white behind them. And I didn't think that, remember I mentioned it many, many times that I didn't think that the lights would shine through it as well, but they're fine. You can see like right around the score windows, I didn't paint that part. And it's pretty much the same as the part above it. So this hasn't been repainted. There was tape here. This has been repainted. And so the translucence of it, I guess that would be the word, is about the same. That's wild. Crazy, 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 crazy. So there you go. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed filming it for you. Make sure to check out our website. Go to lionsarcade.com. When you go there, we have all of our arcade games and pinball machines and stuff for sale on there. But we also have a parts page with a lot of the stuff we use in our repairs, and also our t-shirts, things like that you can check out. If you down below and on that page, there's links to Amazon. If you're going to buy anything on Amazon, if you use our link to go to Amazon instead of typing in Amazon.com, if you click our link and then go buy whatever you're going to buy on Amazon, you'll notice up in the URL it says Lions Arcade, because basically it's our link and it gives us a piece of the profit for sending you there. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that. And last but not least, make sure to check out my brother Donnie. If you don't know about that, my brother actually has a channel here on YouTube. And if you like watching us work on these old arcade games, you may enjoy watching us work on old pinball machines. You're watching us work on old pinball machines. You may enjoy watching us work on old buildings. We've bought a couple buildings in a small town near here that we're going to that we're repairing, and we're trying to rent for to help revitalize downtown. So go check that out. It's a fun time. We really enjoy doing it. It says above where it says Knight Rider, it says King of the Road. So I guess that lights up at some point. I'm going to have to look that up. What makes it light up King of the Road? Wow. There must be some kind of high score thing or something. It's not lit, but it has the ability to light up. King of the Road. We'll figure that out in the next video. So we'll see you then. Next time we'll work on the playfield and get this thing a little farther along. What a cool looking game. I'm glad the Backglass came out better than I thought. I'm real happy about that. I'll see you on the next one. Hope you enjoyed it.